One group of compounds that we're going to talk about naming is acids, and acids always start with the element hydrogen. So anytime that you see hydrogen as the first element in a compound, chances are it's going to be an acid. So for example, HCl is hydrochloric acid, HNO3 is nitric acid. In both cases, the very first element in the compound is hydrogen. There are two basic types of acids that we can name. The first one is going to be made up of just simply two elements, so hydrogen plus some other element from the periodic table. The other type of acid will be made of more than two elements, so we're going to have three elements or more, and this is when we have hydrogen plus a polyatomic ion. Okay, so we had that list of polyatomic ions that you were given in class. And so if we have one of those that's a part of an acid, then that's going to use a different set of naming rules. Here are two examples. HCl is our first one. So whenever we have two elements which include hydrogen, we're always going to start with hydro, okay, which is how we recognize that the hydrogen is there. And then it's chloric acid. Okay, so what we're doing, we enter the word hydro, then we have the stem from the word chlor, we end with the suffix ic, and we add acid. So hydro, the root word for the element, ic, acid. HBr is another example. It starts with H. We want to recognize the hydrogen there, so we call it hydro. Br is the element bromine, so we're going to take the root of bromine, brome. We add the ic suffix on the end, and then the word acid. So HBr is hydrobromic acid. Try using that naming scheme for these two compounds, HF and HI. Pause the video at this time and write your answers, and then check with Mrs. Benke. HF is hydrofluoric acid. Okay, so again, we have the prefix hydro and the suffix ic followed by acid. HI is hydroiodic acid. So then what do we do when we have a polyatomic ion? There's more than three elements. Well, here we have HNO3, and NO3 is our polyatomic ion. NO3 with a -1 charge from your polyatomic sheet is called nitrate. When you're naming acids with polyatomic ions, you have to pay attention to the ending of the polyatomic ion. Nitrate ends in ATE. So if you have a polyatomic ion that ends in ATE, you're going to use the suffix ic followed by the word acid when you name the acid. If, on the other hand, your polyatomic ion ends in ITE or ite, you use the suffix os, O-U-S, acid. NO3 is nitrate, so we're going to call this nitric acid. So again, we use the root for the word. The root for nitric acid is nitra, N-I-T-R. We drop the ATE, okay, and we add the ic suffix. That's where we get nitric acid. Here are a few more examples. HClO3. ClO3 is the ion chlorate. H2SO4. SO4 is the polyatomic ion sulfate. And H2SO3, SO3 is the polyatomic ion sulfite. Take a few minutes to answer these problems. Name these acids and then come back to check your answers. HClO3 is chloric acid. We know this because our polyatomic ion ends in ATE. So we're going to drop the ATE off the name. That's where we get chlor. And then we add our suffix ic and then acid. H2SO4 is sulfuric acid. Again, our polyatomic ion ends in ATE. So we drop that ending. That gives us sulfur. We add the suffix ic and the word acid. H2SO3 is sulfurous acid. If we look at this polyatomic ion, it ends in ITE. We drop that ending and we have sulfur again, and then we add the suffix OUS and acid. So that's how we get sulfurous acid. So just to recap, if we have a polyatomic ion that ends in ATE, we're going to use the suffix ic plus the word acid. And if we have a polyatomic ion that ends in ITE, we're going to use the suffix OUS plus the word acid. Please jot any questions you have down in your notes and ask Mrs. Benke if you need any help.